are listening to Next Level Thinking on St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9.
So before we were talking about when it comes to stress in your children, prevention is better than cure. We spoke a little bit about structure being important, routine, healthy habits, and sports. Now I wanted to get a little bit into conflict resolution. We know that it is very important when it comes to conflict resolution that you model the behavior for your children.
Yes, for little children, they might be going through an emotion and they don't know what it means. So you can talk to them, help them by labeling the emotion. Oh, you're crying right now. Well, do you know why you're crying? Okay, it sounds like you're upset or you're disappointed or sad. So that way they can learn, okay, this is what that feels like. And for our teens, I think listening to them, they often are just looking for someone to listen and not necessarily to hear your advice, which is something that I think parents...
Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. With teens, we see that in the school a lot. Yeah. So, and even as a parent, I have to catch myself sometimes and remind myself that you have to listen and see where they're coming from, because you can give them all the advice in the world, but if it doesn't really come from them, it doesn't come naturally, they won't follow it.
Yeah. That's my experience too, indeed.
Yeah, it happens. But and those type of things, like with conflict resolution, it is very important for you to teach your children that if they're having problems with their peers, that is natural. Because I know peer pressure or when your children are having their first friends, my little girl, for instance, she has her first best friend now because she's 6 years old and she's claimed someone as her best friend, and they're going through their first fights. How does that go? That can be a source of stress for a 6-year-old. If they're fighting with their friend and they come home, sometimes they bring those things home with them.
Yep.
Because they wonder if they're going to lose their best friend or their best friend doesn't like them anymore. Those type of things you have to realize that in your 6-year-old world, they have no bills. They have no romantic relationships. The things that are happening right now in their lives are super important for them. So any small thing with a friend can really be a big source of stress for like your 6-year-old or your 4-year-old. So you really have to walk them through that having that type of issue with a friend is normal. But how are we going to solve that problem? Exactly. And teaching your children how to solve problems on their own, so you not solving your problems for them, is really a great way to help them manage their stress. Yep. When they can look at a problem from an aspect of how are we going to solve it.
Yeah. Because sometimes for children, and even for us, a bit of older children, it can be difficult to see the relation between things happening and the consequences. So sometimes you really have to help them with getting that more clear for them.
Yeah, and teens as well. We as you get older, we've all experienced it. The problems become more complicated.
Yes, I was thinking about your teenagers, like how that one little thing can lead to so many other incidents. So whatever happened on Facebook is now, it's talked about in the classroom, and now it affects the lunch because now you can't sit next to them because of this happening. And then it affects, who you're going to stand by when you're waiting for the bus. So those little events can all lead to other events, to remember that.
And that is why conflict resolution, teaching your children how to solve a problem without your help, as small as they are, is really the way to go when it comes to helping them deal with those issues that are going to come. And it also helps them to reduce the stress in their lives. And us adults can also benefit from that as well, obviously. Before we left off, we were talking more about if your child is stressed. So we talked about prevention being better than cure, but if your child is already stressed, if your child is facing the FBE exams, if your child is if your teenager is getting ready for their central exams, how can you help your children deal with the stress?
I think making sure that your children follow those same routines. Are they still being able to go to their soccer practice? Because like you said earlier, Henrietta, this will help them. it seems counterproductive, but it actually helps them get rid of that stress.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so something like sports, that is very important. Something like sports is something that even though your children are about to get ready to sit their exams, you should not take that away from them.
No, the balance between active activities and relaxing activities is really important for them to catch up and to be able to learn better. When you're not rested, when you're overactive, you can learn as well as when you're rested.
Definitely. So that is really a direct result. Honey, you were saying?
Oh, so I was going to ask you, Zulima, do you think that during the FB exam, you should take your child out of the sports?
So no, that's what I was saying. It's definitely recommended that you leave your child in their routine. Again, if you spend time building up this routine with your child, this routine helps them to manage the stress. They know what's coming next. And especially because they've always had a routine, they know how to manage their time. They can continue going to sports because, as Henrietta indicated, it helps them to get out their frustrations, and it's not really effective when you're working the whole time. You know that as an adult, you need a break, and your child also needs that break when they're studying. So it's very important for them to stick to their routine and to stick to their sports. What is also important is start early, guys. With your kids, building healthy routines, don't expect them to be model students or have great routines just 2 months before the exams. It won't happen. So we're hoping that, parents are mindful of, if you want your child to have those healthy routines, start now. Start from when they have entered school, that you have those routines, those structures in place, those healthy habits, because they won't be able to develop them suddenly 3-4 months before an exam.
No. And what I think is really important is that you look at how you behave when you're really stressed, because you act as an example for your children. So when you're stressed, how do you deal with it? Your child is going to look at you and see how you deal with it. So in that way, you can be a good example if you have healthy ways of dealing with it when you're stressed yourself.
And when you're really so I know Honey was talking about when that stress is really high, models of how you can help your children calm down.
Yeah, so what we could do as parents is we can just model it in the moment. Take some deep breaths and do it with your child. Have them just breathe in and breathe out. Some people like to count backwards. Some people like to count forwards. For my little guys, I like to encourage those children to just squeeze an imaginary lemon. Let that stress run out and do it a few times. Reopen your hand, squeeze again, and that way they can help relieve that stress.
So these are definitely ways that in the moment when your little ones or even your teens feel like they don't know what to do with all of that emotion that is coursing through their bodies, these are ways that you can help them to take a breather, to collect themselves, get rid of the stress so that they can make good decisions going forward. So these are some of the things you can do to help your child to prevent stress.
I think as parents, we often will say, oh, I'm really upset right now. Mom's upset or mommy's mad. Well, then as a parent, you can take it to the next level. You can talk about, okay, mommy is upset right now. So I'm going to take 5 deep breaths and you'll see that mommy will calm down. And the more you do this with your child, the more that they'll learn to do this on their own.
Yes, because as adults, parents, caregivers, teachers, what we have to realize is that the behavior that will help our children deal with the stress are learned. You can tell them all day long, but you have to model it. You have to do the same thing for it to actually resonate for the child. So if they see you having those habits of preventing stress, you have daily routines and you exercise, eat healthy, they will do the same.
Yep.
If you are already stressed and you have the habits of sticking to your routine and having a good outlet, like having a journal or doing something creative, that will be something that your child will also learn. And in the moment when you're really stressed out and you model that letting go of the stress by either taking deep breaths or squeeze an imaginary lemon, these are things that your child will also internalize and they will also learn. Yeah. So it is very important. And I think the main takeaway that we have for our listeners today is for everyone to realize that stress is a part of life. is a part of your life. It'll be a part of your children's life. So be vigilant and proactive and help your children to learn to manage their stress. That is the main takeaway. And that's the end of this session. We hope that you enjoyed it, that you learned something, and we encourage you to follow us on Facebook at APAP-SXM. If you are interested in knowing more about our organization or asking any question that you had during this session. And we really hope that you also tune in to Next Level Thinking next time on St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9.
Next Level Thinking.